Hello everyone, and welcome in to another edition of the ONIT Spring Sports Show. We've got postseason action taking place in both baseball and softball, and we're going to get to all the news. Before we start, want to make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, as it helps us out here on the channel, and make sure that you don't miss any of our future content as we pave the roads to Oklahoma City and Omaha here throughout the rest of spring. And if you stick around to the end of the video, we've got some highlights to show off for you of polls, and we can tell you how you can get involved in submitting your clips to us. So you won't want to miss that. Make sure you stick around to the end. But let's jump right on in and take a look at what's in our Spring Sport box.
What's in the box?
Our ONIT Spring Sports box this week features the locally sourced but nationally relevant headlines for all of our ONIT teams, as we had two great performances over the weekend that we're going to hand out some Gem Mint 10 grades for. Then we'll jump on into the baseball conference tournaments and take a look how our teams stack up. Before moving on and previewing super regionals here on the softball side, as a number of our ONIT teams are guaranteed to punch a ticket into Oklahoma City. But let's start with our best performers from last week and look at our Gem Mint 10 grades. Welcome into Making the Grade, where we tell you who had the best performance over the weekend in our eyes here at ONIT. It was an important weekend with the final week of the baseball regular season and regionals on softball in full swing, but two players rose above the rest, and we're going to talk about them right here, right now, starting off in baseball. And from the Florida Gators, our Gem Mint 10 winner this week is Hayden Yost from Florida. In a 15-11 win over LSU, Yost went absolutely nuclear. 4 for 5 in the series finale with 3 home runs and drove in 5 runs in that game. He had a back-to-back with one of his teammates as well early on in the contest, and just really powered the Florida offense, driving in a third of their runs and clubbing 3 home runs in the same game is always an incredible feat. You rarely see it happen, and for that reason, Hayden Yost is our Gem Mint 10 on the baseball diamond for his performance last week against LSU in that series. In softball, regionals were taking place, and no player stood out more in their championship game to me than Katie Stewart from Texas. She had her 4th multi-homer game of the year as she went deep twice in a 7-0 win over Baylor. She was 2 for 2 with the 2 bombs, also drew 2 walks, and she drove in 3 runs. And with the 2 home runs, she is now up to 27 on the year, which is a Longhorns program record. So Katie Stewart got the job done for Texas. They advanced to a super regional with the 7-0 win over Baylor, and Stewart holds the program record for single season home runs, which she has the opportunity to add on to this weekend when Texas hosts their super regional. So for all of those reasons, Katie Stewart and her offensive explosion in a regional championship game is our softball Gem Mint 10 this week, as we move the page and look at what's coming up in all of these baseball conference tournaments. Now it is time to take a look at the baseball conference tournaments, and all of our ONIT teams have made it into one. There's a lot going on, 4 different tournaments that we're going to cover here, and we are going to start with the easiest one in terms of teams. We have just 2 teams in the Big Ten tournament, but this is not an easy bracket to comprehend if you haven't seen what's going on here in the Big Ten. So I'll throw the picture up on the screen for you folks to see, but UCLA is already through to the single elimination portion of the tournament, which does not start until Friday, May 22nd. So UCLA is sitting back, resting, and taking their time to take in what happens here. Our other team in this tournament, Ohio State, is the 6th seed, and they are in the double elimination portion of this tournament. Yes, there's a double elimination and a single elimination portion of the Big Ten tournament this year. Super interesting stuff. I've never before seen a bracket like this. So Ohio State will play Washington. If they win that game, they will play either Michigan or Rutgers, and if they win that contest, they go straight through as qualifier number 2 and would be matched up with Oregon in the single elimination portion of the bracket. If Ohio State is to lose either their game to Washington or their game against Rutgers/Michigan, they would drop down into the double elimination losers bracket portion here, where they would need to win depending on when they lost, either 1 or 2 games to become qualifier number 4 into the single elimination portion of this tournament, where they would play Nebraska. So really interesting stuff going on there. UCLA is clear. They will not play Ohio State unless the two of them meet up in the championship game, which is happening on Sunday, May 24th. Ahead of the selection show, which takes place this Monday, the 25th at noon Eastern time. So that's the Big Ten bracket. Ohio State's got some work to do if they want to meet up with UCLA in the finals. UCLA will not play until Friday, where they will more than likely take on USC in a battle of the rival schools. And then the championship game could be against either Nebraska or Oregon. UCLA has slid down the stretch here. They lost their first conference games, but the way that they played all season makes me believe that they will be the champions of this tournament. And even if they aren't, they are going to a regional. They will be hosting a regional, guaranteed. And they'll probably end up in Omaha. They went wire to wire as the number 1 team in the country, so would shock me if that did not happen. So that is the Big Ten tournament. Let's flip on over and look at the SEC. We are loaded with teams here. In fact, we have 9 teams in the SEC tournament. And as you see from this bracket, it's much more straightforward than the Big Ten, but we have a lot of games to get through before we crown a champion. So let's start on the far side. We have a matchup between ONIT teams with South Carolina and Tennessee. One of those two will be going home, the 15-seeded South Carolina squad, or the 10th-seeded Tennessee Volunteers will be eliminated from this tournament, unfortunately. And then Oklahoma is our other ONIT team that is playing in the first round of the SEC tournament as the 11th seed matched up against LSU. When we get into the second round, we will have an ONIT team in every game, starting at the top with Mississippi State as the 8th seed, trying to earn a berth into the quarterfinals to take on the number 1 seed Georgia, while Florida will get the winner of Kentucky or Vanderbilt and potentially play against Alabama. And Arkansas will be in an ONIT versus ONIT matchup between the winner of Tennessee and South Carolina, with an opportunity to make it another ONIT versus ONIT matchup against the 2-seed Texas there in the quarterfinals. And then lastly, Auburn may potentially play Oklahoma in the last second round contest there, with the 6-seeded Tigers more than likely to advance to play the number 3 seed, Texas A&M, which is a series we just saw not too long ago. So when we look at the quarterfinals, we could potentially have Mississippi State against Georgia, Florida against Alabama, Arkansas, South Carolina, or Tennessee against Texas, and then Auburn or Oklahoma against Texas A&M, which means we do have the opportunity to have an all-ONIT semifinal and final, of course. But as you know, in these brackets, I predict things to go chalk. It makes my life so much easier, which means that we would see Georgia and Alabama in that first semifinal, and Texas A&M in a really intriguing semifinal matchup, especially after the series they had earlier this year. And everything plays out as it should. It would be Georgia versus Texas for the SEC championship. That is definitely a game that I would be very interested in. That game's taking place on Sunday as well. I think a majority of these SEC teams, regardless of what happens, will be into the NCAA tournament. Hosting is a different question, but I think Texas A&M, Texas, Auburn, Arkansas can all feel pretty confident about what they have going on. Florida can feel confident as well. Again, I don't know about hosting, but just being into the tournament, I see it very hard for any of those teams to be left out, regardless of what happens here. Mississippi State, Tennessee, South Carolina, Oklahoma might have a little bit of work to do, but because they play in such a tough conference and the wins, the amount of quality wins that they have picked up this year, they might have a backdoor shot in there as well. And we'll see how many teams get in out of the SEC. But that kind of puts a bow on what's going on there. That is going to be a long, drawn-out slugfest of a tournament, kind of similar to what I think we are going to see in the Big 12. That is our next tournament to take a look at, and our teams and seeding are as follow. We got West Virginia as the 2 seed, narrowly missed out on winning the regular season crown over Kansas. Arizona State comes in as the 3, Oklahoma State is the 5, while TCU is the 7, and Texas Tech is the 12 seed. As you can see in the bracket here, this is what that means for matchups. Starting in the first round, Texas Tech taking on BYU. Winner of that game will go on to play Baylor. And if Tech can get through the first and second round, they would not have the potential to even match up with another ONIT team until this semifinals, which would be where they could potentially see Oklahoma State there, as Oklahoma State is already through to the quarterfinals on Thursday. They will play the 4 seed UCF. If they can pull the upset, and Texas Tech can go on an unbelievable gauntlet run right there through BYU, Baylor, Kansas, then we could potentially see an ONIT matchup on that side of the bracket, but I'm not holding my breath. We're much more likely to see an ONIT versus ONIT matchup on the bottom side, where we have TCU already into the second round, awaiting the winner of K-State and Utah. If they win their game as the favorite, they will play West Virginia in an ONIT versus ONIT matchup. TCU has come on really strong as of late. They've started to get healthier, which I think is a big thing. And there is a chance that the Horned Frogs could scare some people in this tournament. They might need to win the whole thing just to get into a regional. Who knows? We'll see what the committee thinks of this TCU team that has certainly improved down the stretch with getting a lot of talented players back due to injuries. So West Virginia could be in for a bit of a surprise there, but the Mountaineers have been really solid all season. And then Arizona State takes on Cincinnati as the 3 seed, the favorite against the 6 seed. We could potentially see an ONIT versus ONIT semifinal matchup there between West Virginia, TCU, and Arizona State, as long as the Sun Devils don't get upset. And then in the finals, if everything goes chalk, like I always predict here, it'll be Kansas versus West Virginia. And West Virginia swept Kansas in Lawrence not that long ago. So West Virginia could end up walking out of here with a Big 12 tournament crown. I think they are secure in the fact that they are headed to the tournament. I know they're on the fence about hosting a regional at the moment, but I think that they will be doing that. So we'll see what happens. If they win the Big 12 tournament, I would imagine it would be assured that West Virginia is hosting a regional. So that's how the Big 12 tournament looks for us. And lastly, we'll go into the ACC tournament, where we have a number of teams scattered throughout as well, including the number 1 seed Georgia Tech. But we also have the 3 seed Florida State, the 6 seed Wake Forest, the 8 seed Virginia, the 9 seed North Carolina State, and the 11 seed Louisville. If you haven't checked out the story on our website, by the way, about Ethan Everly, the left-handed pitcher from Louisville who's big into collecting and ONIT cards, I definitely recommend you check that out. Head over to the ONIT Athlete website. That's where you can find that. But the ACC tournament breakdown is as follows. We have first round action with North Carolina State taking on Duke. If they can win that game, they will play Virginia in an ONIT versus ONIT matchup. We also have Louisville taking on Pitt as the favorites, the 11 seed versus the 14 seed. That could also set up an ONIT versus ONIT matchup in the second round, where it would be Louisville versus Wake Forest. So those are the games, the directions that we're hoping those games take there in the first round to set up some matchups between ONIT teams. If so, we could have Virginia or NC State take on Georgia Tech in the quarterfinals, depending on who wins in the second round. And we could also see Louisville or Wake Forest take on Florida State down in the quarterfinals. So those are the ONIT versus ONIT matchups we're hoping for through that point. The quarterfinals being Thursday through Friday there in the ACC tournament. And then looking ahead to the semifinals and the championship, anticipating that Florida State and Georgia Tech both make it through to the semis. Georgia Tech potentially meeting up with North Carolina in the final, or if Florida State could pull that upset, then we could potentially see the Seminoles versus the Yellow Jackets in the championship, a series that Georgia Tech demolished Florida State on earlier in the season. So we'll see what happens there in regards to who makes it to the championship, but I'm betting on the Yellow Jackets to walk away as the ACC champions this year. And that is our baseball conference tournament breakdown. A lot of teams, a lot of actions. It already has started, I should say. As I film this here on Tuesday, by the time you watch this video on Wednesday, it will already have begun. So we'll have a few more answers about these first round games, but we'll have a lot of questions left going into the weekend about what's going to happen Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the quarters, the semis, and the championships. So looking forward to it. And by that time, we'll already know what happens in softball. So why don't we take a look at some of these super regional matchups we have on deck. Who's ready to get super? Super regionals are here in softball, and we're taking a look at what's going on. We're going to quickly talk about the teams that are not playing ONIT squads here in the super regionals. So it should be Oklahoma State taking on Mississippi State, who won the Eugene Regional. Arkansas is taking on Duke. And UCLA is playing UCF, who came out of the Tallahassee Regional and spoiled the UCLA-Florida State matchup that we thought we might get. So those are our 3 ONIT teams that are not playing an ONIT school. But we have plenty of ONIT squads getting after it against one another. Starting off with a super intriguing matchup between the 2-seed Florida Gators and the 3-seed Texas Tech Red Raiders. Florida is hosting this in Gainesville. Texas Tech had the miraculous comeback against Ole Miss to make it to the regional championship game, and then thoroughly handed Ole Miss the game on a platter in the championship. So the offense finally came to life for Texas Tech. In the circle, they have not been nearly as strong as I think anybody anticipated. So it's been a really up and down roller coaster ride for Texas Tech over these last couple of weeks. And Florida is a veteran, well-coached team. They have tons of talent, really strong in the circle and behind the dish. Just a lot of really smart players on that team who are veterans and have been here before. So I will be interested to see what happens in this regional. Texas Tech, of course, is trying to get back to the championship game where they lost to Texas last year. So this is a really intriguing regional to me. I think it could go either way, but I'm going to take Florida here as the favorites. Then we have an ONIT versus ONIT matchup coming our way in Knoxville between two SEC foes in the 2-seeded Tennessee Volunteers and the 3-seeded Georgia Bulldogs. Tennessee really had no problems in the Knoxville regional, and Georgia was much of the same story in Athens. Both of these teams kind of breezed through the opposition, and now they go into a matchup where I think pitching is going to be the most important part. The Bulldogs have swung the bat really well all season long. Tennessee has done so too, but I think the advantage in the circle with the AUSL number 1 overall pick, Carlin Pickens, is going to be too much for Georgia here. I think Pickens is going to do some heavy lifting for the Volunteers and send them to Oklahoma City. So that's how I see that Knoxville Super Regional playing out. Then we have Nebraska versus Oklahoma State. Two teams with incredible aces in Jordy Fromm from Nebraska and Ruby Malin from Oklahoma State. Nebraska's offense, as you folks know, was sputtering in the regional. They only put up 1 run against Grand Canyon in the championship game on a solo home run, but that was enough for Alexis Jensen and Jordy Fromm. Oklahoma State, meanwhile, had the bats rocking and rolling throughout their time in Stillwater and was able to get through Stanford, Princeton, and Eastern Illinois rather easily, while Nebraska really struggled to get any offense going. Ruby Malin's, of course, an elite arm inside the circle. She was the Big 12 co-pitcher of the year, and so I'm interested to see if Nebraska turns things around offensively as they host the first ever Super Regional in school history. They're trying to get back to Oklahoma City for the first time in a while, and they have never won a title. I know Cornhusker fans think this may be the year for them. I think they'll find a way to get past Oklahoma State and get to Oklahoma City, but they are going to have to figure out their offensive woes if they really want to be title contenders this year, in my opinion. And that brings us to our last Super Regional between two ONIT squads, which sees Texas hosting Arizona State. The upstarts who upset Texas A&M in the College Station Regional walked off the regional with a grand slam and have just had everything clicking after beating Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship. Texas looked phenomenal in their regional, blanking Baylor in the championship game. Tegan Cabin has been on fire. Katie Stewart has swung the bat really well. But Arizona State has Kenzie Brown in the circle, and she has been pitching like one of the best in the country as of late. She basically carried Arizona State to the championship win, shutting out a phenomenal Texas Tech lineup in the Big 12 championship game, and then really just ran through UConn, McNeese, and held down Texas A&M's offense throughout the regional in College Station. So this is really intriguing to me. I think Texas has more talent. I think they are the better team. But I think in the circle, Kenzie Brown could neutralize this series. I wouldn't be shocked if it went 3 games, if Brown can throw a gem in one of them and help Arizona State steal a win. But I have to think that Texas is going to be going through as the 1 seed over the 5 seed. So that is how the Super Regionals look for us. We have Oklahoma, UCLA, Florida, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Arizona State, all playing in Super Regionals this weekend, Thursday through Saturday. So make sure you check those out because we are guaranteed to have some teams in Oklahoma City with the Women's College World Series starting at the end of May. So really looking forward to this weekend in baseball and softball. It should be an absolute blast. So that's all the time we have for today's show. But before we get out of here, we've got some submissions to share with you from our highlights page. We've been letting you know that you can head to the link onithathlete.com/highlights and share your hits. Well, we've got some of those to take a look at right now. Why don't we start off with some incredible football action, taking a look at a Michigan ONIT black box.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I hit this. Oh, I was telling you how excited I would be to get a dual signature. There are 20 of these cards.
A really awesome dual autograph pull right there. You can see how excited he was to pull those. So we appreciate Evan sending in that video. You can check out his YouTube channel. It's exactly what we listed there on the clip. So go check out his channel if you're a Michigan fan. I think you'll enjoy the content. And we've got another submission. This one came to us on Twitter. One of the best UCLA collections I have ever seen. I mean, just tons of really good stuff in there. General admissions, nitros, tons of autographs. It is a fantastic looking collection, so we appreciate Will sharing those with us. And you could be featured right here on this segment as well. All you gotta do is go to the link down below, and we will post up some of the best hits that you share with us. We'd love to get that going here more on the YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you to those who submitted as well. And we will see you next week to talk about the results of the baseball selection show and see what softball teams are headed to the World Series.